Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff of California. What do you think about his response? But whatever happened here is all on Hillary Clinton.
Chris, we would be exactly where we are, regardless of what Secretary Clinton did with her emails. The reality is that we haven't been talking about Secretary Clinton in the committee because they wanted to put off her testimony as far into the presidential cycle as possible, and this is only the most recent justification for that. We have been asking for her to come in. She has volunteered to come in and testify. So I think this is really, unfortunately, just an effort to push this as far into that campaign as possible.
But wait a minute here. I mean, doesn't it bother you that Clinton and her lawyer, by themselves, decided which of those 60,000 emails were public and government and turned over and which were private, which she deleted? Is that your idea of transparency?
Chris, let's say that she did it exactly the way that we would like, that she had a separate email account for her government emails and for her private. We would be in exactly the same place because people would be saying, well, how can we trust that she only used the official email account when she was supposed to?
Forgive me, but I'm not sure it would be exactly the same to the extent that there would have been a contemporaneous record because she would have been sending these. You know, there's a different vantage point in 2015 than there might have been in 2009, 10, and 11 as she was sending these emails on a government account,
Chris,
which she didn't have.
You're giving our committee way too much credit. We'd be exactly where we are because the whole purpose of this committee is really Secretary Clinton. It has long since been about anything else. So we would be in the same place. My chairman, who I respect a great deal, would be saying the same thing. We can't let Secretary Clinton grade her own papers, whatever that means. We can't let her have decided which to put on the official email and which to use for her private email. So we need that server anyway.
So you think this was adequate transparency on her part?
I think that we ought to handle this situation exactly as we did in a very similar situation in the last administration. And that is when we learned that the President's Chief of Staff under George W. Bush and about 80 other many senior White House officials were using the Republican National Committee email server for official business. We didn't go and say we demand to have that server. We need to get the Republican server to an independent arbiter. No, we said we're going to have people certify with us that they've given us the documents. We're going to talk with them about how they did the searches.
But
we're going to do all the same things that we should be doing here.
But that isn't quite what happened, because I actually look back, and this was during the whole question of the firing of U.S. attorneys during the George W. Bush administration, and you were one of the people leading the charge saying this was outrageous, that they were using one set of accounts, government accounts, and then doing other business on RNC accounts.
Well,
you were objecting to that.
I was objecting to politicizing the hiring and firing of U.S. attorneys, absolutely. But I was never saying that we need the Republican National Committee server. I never made that claim.
But you were upset about the fact that they had two separate
Chairman
accounts.
Henry Waxman. So the question is, why are we handling this different? Is it because Secretary Clinton is running for president? And I think the answer is absolutely that's why we're handling this different. I think the reason that we're so reluctant to talk about Jeb Bush's use of his server has everything to do with the presidential race. Why isn't that fair topic for conversation here? He used a private email server for official business. Are we letting Jeb Bush be his own judge and jury? Are we letting him grade his own homework? Because
first of all, he turned over hundreds of thousands of emails. In addition to which, I think you would agree that the security implications of the governor of Florida and the Secretary of State are different. But let me ask you.
But this too, Chris, in fairness, it's taken him 7.5 years. People are criticizing Secretary Clinton for doing this last year, 2 years out. It's taken him 7.5 years, and we're still getting documents from Governor Bush.
I want to ask you about this Form 109, the separation statement. It's awfully clear, and basically every employee of the State Department has to sign and swear that they have turned over all of their papers, all classified and unclassified, that they had when they were in the office in the State Department. And if they don't, if they sign it and they have broken that pledge, it's a felony. They could go to prison. They could be disqualified from public office. One, do you know if she signed it? And two, did she live up to this pledge?
Well, I don't know if she signed it, and I assume we'll find out. I hope we find out about whether all prior secretaries have signed it.
But let's talk about her.
But let's also talk about Benghazi, Chris, because
No, I'm asking you about. Forgive me.
Yes.
I'm asking you about this.
Yeah.
She clearly didn't live up to this pledge. You would agree.
I don't know what the terms of that require. I haven't had a chance to study it.
I'll be able to hand it to you.
Well,
it says what I said. I have turned everything over.
That I acquired. Now, I don't know what that means exactly, and we'd have to study it. But let's be fair about this. We are talking about investigation on Benghazi, right? What does this have to do with Benghazi? And the answer is absolutely nothing. This committee has long since departed from being a committee about Benghazi. It's now a special investigation of Secretary of State Hillary Clinton.
Well,
otherwise, what possible relevance does that form have to Benghazi?
If Trey Gowdy is acting as an arm of the RNC to go after Clinton, aren't you in effect acting as an arm of the DNC to protect her?
No, I'm acting as a steward of the House to try to keep a taxpayer-funded investigation on track, doing what it's supposed to be doing. And look, I have great respect for Trey. I like him very much, and I think he has resisted the pressure to turn this into an arm of the RNC. But we knew about this private email server, private emails, last August. It's only when this became public in the New York Times that I think the pressure became too great on the chairman and the committee to politicize this. And reluctantly, I think that's where we've gone.
I got 30 seconds left. I know you want to talk about this letter that the 47 Republicans sent to the leaders of Iran about the talks over a nuclear deal.
I think it's appalling to interfere in a negotiation like this that the commander-in-chief is engaged in. I think that Democrats and Republicans, House and Senate members, ought to keep their powder dry. Let's see whether there is a deal. Let's see what the terms of that deal are. But I am shocked, and I think it's a terrible thing for the institution.
We're going to have more on that later. Congressman Schiff, thank you. Thanks for coming in today, and we'll follow where your committee goes next.